Good morning. It's time to do a video. As I said before, I don't have my studio set up. I have to move for a year. So I need to go through a few things. I'm going to do some short videos here, each of a different subject. This subject first is going to be Ukraine-Russia, the situation, real quick, because there's only two people that I have heard that actually know the history of Ukraine. And we don't have to go back too far. We can go back to 2014 if you'd like. The Ukraine, let's go back to about 1990. The Berlin Wall had fallen. The East German occupation by the Soviet Union was going to be dismantled. Gorbachev basically told the United States, look, you guys can reunite Germany. I will withdraw 400,000 troops and you can make Germany part of NATO. We're going to dismantle the Soviet Union. We are going to give everybody autonomy. Each one's going to have their own nation now. So what we're going to do is ask one thing. Do not move NATO 1 inch. And that was the agreement. James Baker, different politicians and diplomats at the time all agreed, all accepted it. They said this is an awesome deal. The Cold War was over, and so they were even talking about a peace dividend where they could basically take down half of the money that we had been spending on the military. We were going to be doing this, continue doing this missile, the ballistic missile treaty. So now, move forward, 2014, 25 years later, we have moved NATO 1,000 miles towards Russia. We have included Poland, Romania. I mean, you name all these nations now, they're all part of NATO. The coming up to the border of Ukraine has been the red line. They said, look, that's it, no further. Russia has been continuing to give concessions, backing. Now we were at the border of Ukraine. We had talked about putting Ukraine into NATO, but the main problem was the corruption there was just about as bad as any nation was. Bribery, extortion, I mean, you name it. So what happened was the duly elected president of Ukraine was overthrown by the United States and Britain, as they usually do. This is pretty much a cookie-cutter approach to what we did in 1953 to Iran, when we took out Mossadegh and put the Shah back in power. And the main reason for this is exactly the same reason with Ukraine, is that we have an oil situation where we were exploiting oil in Iran. The oil companies were exploiting oil from Iran, and the country was getting very little money back for it. So what Mossadegh had wanted to do is renegotiate the contracts. This is actually the same thing that Venezuela did. Wanted to renegotiate the contracts with the oil companies so they could get more profit into their countries to help build schools and infrastructure and things that the nation needed, because you had a huge difference between rich and poor. There was very little middle class in Venezuela. The same thing with Iran. So what we did was we overthrew that democratically elected president in Venezuela by financing riots. We put in millions of dollars into this operation to make riots to overthrow the president. And that's what actually happened. Then we imposed the president temporarily. Zelensky then ran for election, and he won the election. He was pro-West, the president that we overthrew was pro-Russian. So we couldn't have that. And then here comes the neocons. Victoria Nolan. Oh my God. The neocons are back. And they helped orchestrate this whole thing. Because if you look at what they said back in 1999, they had come up with this group, and they come up with a report called the New American Century, which meant that in 2000, 21st century, since we were the last superpower, since Soviet Union had collapsed and China wasn't a threat at that time, although they did have nuclear weapons, the plan was to just rule the world, exploit the natural resources, take what we want, and control the narratives. So then you've got a situation where the Zelensky had run on a peace plan, because what had been going on ever since the president was overthrown and this group of psychos was put in, you had neo-Nazis, okay? This group called the Azov Brigade was actually from Germany, from the original Nazi party in Germany. This party had progressed and developed down the line into the Azov Brigade, which was part of Ukraine. And the very first law that they passed was to outlaw the Russian language. Well, particularly on the border, Donbass and these other regions there, particularly in that area, you've got 90% of the people that live there speak Russian. Suddenly their language has been outlawed. Oh, unbelievable. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has talked about that. He has explained it in great detail, exactly what happened and how it happened. You've also got Glenn Greenwald, you've got Chris Hedges. There are many, many people that know exactly what happened. But the American people don't, because we're getting our stories from the mainstream media, which is basically telling the population, oh, boom, here comes Russia invading Ukraine. Isn't that horrible? Look at this evil Putin. Look what he has done. And if you don't understand the whole story, how can you decide when to go to war, how to go to war, who's evil, who's not evil? This is ridiculous. Unfortunately, many, many Americans think that the mainstream media is really telling the truth about everything. And you are getting propaganda at the speed of light. They are giving you propaganda and shoving it right down your throat. And if you don't understand that, then that's probably why everybody is for Ukraine. We gotta destroy Russia if it takes every single Ukrainian. Are you insane? And we have pumped in over $170 billion worth of weaponry and cash into Ukraine. The Russian government only spends $65 billion a year on their military. But they have developed new weaponry. They have developed hypersonic missile systems. They have developed new nuclear weapons. We have adversaries out there that are extremely dangerous, and these weapon systems are being used as a purely defensive move, because look what NATO did. These people are scared shitless. If you want to look at a map, go to Google and look at a map and see where all the military bases are in the world, and you will find that the United States has 800 military bases all around the world, and look where a bunch of them are. All across in that area north of Ukraine, all across that Eastern European region, we've got military bases everywhere. We are virtually surrounding Russia. And we've got them in Turkey, all the way around. These people in Russia know about war, and they know about invasions. They have been invaded 3 times through Ukraine. And if you look at that last invasion with Nazi Germany, Germany destroyed about maybe a quarter up to a third of Russia. Destroyed it, leveled it. As Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said, it's like if the United States had been invaded and everything from the East Coast to Chicago had been leveled. One out of every 7 Russian men were killed. You had almost 20 million people in Russia that were killed. So they know all about invasions. They know all about what the Nazis did. And then when we back up Nazis in Ukraine and talk about how we're going to put Ukraine in NATO, what do you think the reaction is going to be? The very first thing that happened in 2014, after they outlawed the Russian language, Russia has almost all of their navy parked all around Crimea. That's their warm water port in the Black Sea. Then they get through there. They can go through the isthmus there between Greece and Turkey, and they can get into the Mediterranean Sea from there. And now the United States is essentially running Ukraine. Russia went in and took Crimea and said, we're not allowing this. This is insane. So they took it without firing a shot. Oh my God, if you listen to the media, Russia invaded Crimea. Oh my God, it was horrible what happened. Isn't that terrible? Evil, evil Putin. You want to talk about war criminals. You want to talk about devastation and the killing of millions, particularly in Iraq. Not only did we kill 1 million people in Iraq to get one guy to take out Saddam Hussein, and half of those people that we killed in Iraq were women and children. And Madeleine Albright had an interview, I think it was with Leslie Stahl, I don't remember. But she asked her, do you really think that 500,000 women and children was worth going to get Saddam Hussein? And she said, and I quote, "We think that it was." What the hell is wrong with these evil psycho pigs? These war pigs, and that's what they are. This situation has gone out of control. Ukraine is selling off these weapons on the black market. Much of that money never even left the United States because it all went into the coffers of Raytheon and Boeing and Lockheed Martin. You have a situation where this war is being stoked. The fire of war has been stoked by the military-industrial complex and the neocons. And the American people go along with it. What, 400,000 Ukrainians have died so far in this conflict, which never should have happened, ever. And you've got psychos in the United States government talking about how we gotta bring Russia to its knees, and we have to have regime change. We have to take out Putin. If it takes every single Ukrainian soldier to do it, and the Ukrainians are not up in arms about this and talking about how insane this is, how their country is being used as a proxy, as a pawn in a geopolitical war. We are facing a nuclear power, and they have united forces with China. You've got this group has been called the BRICS now, and you've got 40 nations signed on to this. BRICS stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Those are the nations that started BRICS. And what that is an IMF type of banking fund system where they can finance their own infrastructure development at lower interest rates without having to be bow before the American empire. And now that you've got this unity to build the new Silk Road, which we should have been a part of this has been going on for 15 years, this development, ever since the Iraq War. They saw this coming. And now we are putting embargoes and sanctions on these different nations that don't go along with our bidding, don't follow our narrative. You have got a situation where we are on the verge of nuclear war. And it's not hyperbole. This is happening. And if we don't stop it now, this place is going to be a leveled, scorched earth policy, because if Russia, they know what will happen if we go into Ukraine, is they will consider that an act of war. We were already arming. This is they already know the United States is running this thing. They're not stupid. So they're already considering this an act of war. But they are trying to be civil about it. So there's going to be a lot of people, oh, you're a Russian apologist, you're a Putin puppet. Screw you. You don't know what you're talking about. You're a moron. You are uneducated. You can call me whatever you want. I don't care, because this is the truth. These are facts. And if you don't understand it, and because you don't understand what's going on, and you allow our United States government to start World War III because of the neon's bloodthirsty desire to rule the world in the military-industrial complex, then you personally are responsible for the death of millions that will die in a World War III. Probably all human life will be destroyed. It's very possible. So your uneducation and moronism will create this situation. You want to have blood on your hands like that? You want to have mass death on a scale that you've never imagined on your hands because of your ignorance? Then good luck. Look at yourself in the mirror every morning and say, how stupid was I, as your face melts off of your skeleton. Okay? That's the situation. I am going to start talking about some other issues here on the next videos. But get a frickin' book, will you? And read something about history. Watch some of the documentaries. Look at what Robert F. Kennedy Jr. knows. He has spoken clearly about this situation. He will tell you exactly how this is. He is an excellent historian. His father and his uncle, JFK, were assassinated. He knows who did it. He said the CIA was involved. It's quite obvious. And now we have the same thing happening again. So I bid you peace, my fellow friends and citizens. Please open your minds and your eyes to reality. Peace.